Part 148. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1471. In the wilderness of Britain, under the bright moonlight, two figures walk side by side. Professor Lupin stretched his body facing the full moon and said comfortably, "Even if I face the full moon, I won't turn into a wolf. It's so comfortable." "Cousin, what do you look like this?" The leader's right guard, Huang Xiaoming, replied, "This is the appearance of a man from my hometown, named Wolverine." "How about it, handsome?" This, Lupin pondered for a few seconds. It's hard to say whether he is handsome or not, but he is really wolf-like. "Could your fellow villager also be a werewolf?" "Haha, of course he is not a werewolf, and werewolves are not good enough in front of him." "Cut it, just brag." Choosing to use the image of Wolverine is completely Xiaoming's bad taste. Whether it is Li Xiaoao, Neo, or Xiaoming's original appearance, they don't look like bad people. This is to deal with werewolves, and those faces are not popular, so Xiaoming found a more reliable image. In the world of Harry Potter, wizards rarely travel on foot. There are many ways to teleport, such as apparition, flu powder, and portkayet. At the very least, they can summon the night bus. However, Lupin and Xiaoming's mission this time is to sneak into the werewolf group. Werewolves are a group that is excluded from the magic world and are on the side of Voldemort, so their addresses are secret. None of the above methods can reach them. So the two can only go into the wilderness. Many werewolves will live in the wild to avoid being persecuted by wizards. Because werewolves will transform into wolves for a few days every month when the moon is full. At that time, they lose all their rationality and are very easy to be exposed. It is dangerous to live in densely populated areas. Moreover, when werewolves have been killing for a long time, most werewolves will gradually be affected by wolf nature. Become bloodthirsty and like nature more. So Lupin and Xiaoming set out on a full moon night and went deep into the wilderness to find werewolves more easily. After all, with two big living people acting as bait here, won't the werewolves come to take a bite? It smells very good. If Lupin was alone, he really wouldn't dare to do this. When the werewolves transform, they are extremely powerful and he may not be able to deal with them. Only with Xiaoming by his side can he play like this. This is also one of the routines designed by Dumbledore for them before they set off. Werewolves worship strength. After attracting werewolves, they can be beaten down, which will make it much easier to subdue them in the future. In addition, at Xiaoming's request, Snape performed the complete refining process of the Wolfsbane potion on the spot, which was firmly remembered by Xiaoming. Although he may not have the talent to make potions, it should be no problem to copy them meticulously. He sent his clone to test it in Bright Summit, and indeed made a Wolfsbane potion with almost the same effect. What else can we say? Let's get started. During Xiaoming and Lupin's journey, potions were also being made in Bright Summit. The raw materials Snape gave were not enough. Fortunately, Xiaoming also brought helpers in Guangmingding. The fox demon Kangma has the ability to manipulate and cultivate plants. With him, materials can be produced in an endless supply. Although Xiaoming only took out a small part of the products for Lupin to operate, he was already shocked. With so many wolf poison potions, Lupin felt that the chances of completing the task were very high. Facts have proved that he is still too idealistic. The duo traveled in the wild for about half a year, and neither the wolf poison potion nor the reward and punishment sword could achieve the desired effect. First of all, Lupin could not see and did not know about the reward and punishment sword at all. Xiaoming just used this ability secretly. Werewolves who can accept the reward of the reward and punishment sword are qualified to be called good werewolves. However, the good werewolves they met were few and far between. Xiaoming used the reward and punishment sword on these werewolves. Only one of them achieved the same effect as Lupin, and he could no longer see the full moon in his field of vision. Unexpectedly, this guy just enjoyed the benefits and went home happily to live his little life. For him, his wife and children at home are the most important. He is not willing to risk his life to fight Voldemort and the Death Eaters for the sake of his two benefactors. Besides, there is no evidence that his situation is their favor, right? Although this person is a bit ungrateful, it is human nature to seek benefits and avoid harm. After all, there are only a few people who dare to go on the road of life and death. Otherwise, Voldemort would not have been able to stir up such a big storm in the magic world. As long as half of the wizards dare to fight to the death, Voldemort's power will not develop at all. In addition, there are two good werewolves who have obtained special effects similar to wolf poison potion from the Sword of Reward and Punishment. That is, they still maintain a clear mind after becoming werewolves. This effect seems to be better than what Lupin got. Could it be that the character of these two has surpassed Professor Lupin? Of course not. In fact, this is determined by their own wishes. Lupin especially hates his werewolf identity, so the Sword of Reward and Punishment makes him stop changing. And these two do not particularly hate turning into wolves. They just don't like mindless killing, so they get the special effect of staying awake. In terms of character, they are comparable to Lupin. But they are much stronger than the previous werewolf. They did not directly join Lupin's camp, but chose to return to the werewolf group. But with a special purpose. They planned to stop other werewolves from doing evil with their clear consciousness and agility when everyone turned into wolves on the night of the full moon. Anyway, the other werewolves were also unconscious at that time and could not remember what happened after the transformation. These two could do things freely. Xiaoming and Lupin both expressed their support for such a lofty goal. However, Lupin also reminded them to be careful of those who had taken wolf poison potion. If they encounter such a werewolf, they should disguise themselves to avoid being exposed. If they are discovered, it is best to kill the guy before turning back into human form. Otherwise, if their behavior of being a traitor is exposed, the werewolves are likely to execute them. So when the situation is not good, it is best to run away quickly. There are also 4 other good werewolves with slightly worse personalities. After receiving the Sword of Rewarding Good and Punishing Evil, they have obtained the special ability of being unable to wake up when the full moon comes. Whether in wolf form or human form. Don't say, this is also a good way. It is slightly less effective than the other two. After all, being unable to wake up in deep sleep is also dangerous for magicians. In the legend of the Deathly Hallows, Antioch, the eldest of the 3 brothers of the Paviral family, died in this way. These 4 followed Lupin patiently for a while, and then left one after another. The fear of Voldemort still prevailed. In general, the Sword of Rewarding Good and Punishing Evil is effective. It achieves the goal in different ways. But encountering only 7 good werewolves in half a year also shows that this path cannot solve the substantive problem. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1472. It's not that the Sword of Rewarding Good and Punishing Evil can't really solve the problem. Good werewolves are rare, but bad werewolves are everywhere. As long as they are given the Sword of Rewarding Good and Punishing Evil, basically any bad werewolf will not survive for more than 3 months. Either they commit suicide to seek relief, or they go completely crazy. I guess there is no one who turns over a new leaf. Of course, if a werewolf goes crazy, it will be a big trouble. He is a madman at ordinary times, and a mad wolf when the moon is full. The harm should not be underestimated. However, a madman who can transform basically won't live long. Is the Ministry of Magic a decoration? An Auror can directly deal with it. But Xiao Ming didn't do this, because generally speaking, he didn't want to interfere too much with the world. All the previous actions depended on his mood. As the saying goes, this is called following fate. In fact, He has done a lot. Snape's plan to use wolf poison potion to win over werewolves did not work. At the beginning, most humans who had just become werewolves still knew how to control themselves. There are actually many ways. Before there was the wolfsbane potion, Lupin locked himself in the Shrieking Shack to avoid hurting others. What if others don't have the Shrieking Shack? Find a secluded place, such as a cellar cage, and lock yourself in it. If you are really worried, you can also lock yourself with a thick iron chain. Just put the key in the corner, anyway, you will have no reason after transformation and can't open the lock. So it is not difficult to be a good werewolf. But why do most werewolves become bad werewolves? This is the problem of blood. Werewolves will gradually be affected by the blood of the wolf, becoming bloodthirsty and violent. Every time they accidentally break the rules, this influence will become deeper and deeper. To a certain extent, this person will lose the will to resist. Simply break the jar and break it. Therefore, too many werewolves have become bloodthirsty maniacs and do all kinds of evil. Even when they are not transformed, they still like to do evil. Although these werewolves also want the wolfsbane potion, it is not to control themselves, but to do evil in a more sober attitude. Isn't this TM helping the evil? Lupin is not stupid. He will only provide wolf poison potion to werewolves who are willing to make an unbreakable vow with him. This vow is a magic spell used to make a vow between wizards. If the vow is broken, the person who breaks it will die. When Lupin was 4 years old, his father offended the werewolf leader Fenrir Greyback. That guy bit little Lupin one night when he turned into a wolf. So Lupin especially hates turning into a wolf. And he sympathizes with other people who were bitten into werewolves by Fenrir. By the way, Fenrir is also a Death Eater, and Voldemort used him to organize and lead werewolves. He may be the cruelest werewolf in the wizarding world. He regards biting and infecting as many people as possible as his goal in life. Fenrir wants to create enough werewolves to conquer wizards, so he bites children specifically. He said, bite them when they are young, so that they grow up away from their parents, grow up with hatred for wizards, and become a member of Voldemort's werewolf army. Voldemort once threatened those who disobeyed him by letting Fenrir bite their children, and such threats often worked. Locking the door and letting the dog out works. Fenrir felt that blood was what the werewolves deserved, and the werewolves should also take revenge on normal people. His character is to be vindictive. Lupin's father just scolded him. Although Fenrir and his werewolf army are loyal to Voldemort. Unfortunately, Voldemort, including his pure-blooded Death Eaters, do not look down on werewolves. Only when necessary will he allow the werewolves to wear the robes of the Death Eaters, which is not allowed at other times. This is actually easy to understand. Voldemort doesn't even look down on half-blood wizards, so how can he look down on werewolves, creatures with even more impure blood? Fortunately, the Dark Lord was defeated in the end. If he really occupied the pinnacle of power and unified Britain and even the European magic world, he would probably completely exterminate the werewolf tribe. When the rabbit dies, the dog is cooked, and when the bird is dead, the bough is hidden. Only then will Fenrir know that he has trusted the wrong person. The werewolves will definitely not accept the unbreakable oath. Since they don't give it, they have to find a way. Those werewolves are also very smart. When they were few in number at the beginning, they didn't dare to turn against Lupin and Wolverine version of Xiao Ming. Wolverine's appearance is not easy to mess with. Of course, they will not give up. Some contacted the werewolves they knew to form a group to kill monsters, and told them that as long as they cleared the copy of the duo, they could get some wolf poison potions. Some secretly followed Lupin and Xiao Ming in order to contact the group. Unfortunately, they would lose them every time. Because this kind of reaction of the werewolves was also expected by the members of the Order of the Phoenix. In order to prevent being intercepted by the werewolf group, the duo often used teleportation to continue their work in a new place. There are not no werewolves who are willing to make an unbreakable oath. In the past 6 months, there have been a total of 4, and their performance is not as good as Xiaoming's sort of rewarding good and punishing evil. Among them, only one voluntarily made an oath through conversation. The other 3 were defeated. Although Lupin and Xiaoming fully utilized the essence of guerrilla warfare, they changed places after firing a shot and tried not to conflict with werewolves. But there are always bad luck. The 2 of them still encountered those werewolves twice. But the ones who came were not wolves, because after they turned into wolves, they forgot their business. So the werewolves who came were all in the form of magicians. The first encounter was at the end of October 1994. There were only 8 or 9 enemies, and Xiaoming and Lupin casually defeated them with magic. They didn't do much. Because Luna had told Xiaoming through the parasite that the Tri-Wizard tournament had begun. There was a delegation from each of the 2 major colleges, Bose Batons and Durmstrang. The 2 delegations, one in a carriage pulled by Pegasus flying in the sky, the other in a large ship diving under the sea. This opened Luna's eyes and made her very excited. She said a lot to the parasite. Xiaoming, who was eavesdropping from a distance, was in a good mood and let the group of werewolves go. The second time was different. More than 30 werewolves came, and the time was chosen on Christmas. Xiaoming and Lupin were in a small village, attending a party held by the locals. This group of werewolf wizards had no regard for the lives of ordinary people. They killed anyone they saw and even used muggles as hostages to force Lupin to surrender. Xiaoming was furious, and countless fireballs flew all over the sky, saving all the hostages and roasting most of the werewolves. Only thanks to Lupin's timely intervention, only 3 were left alive. After seeing Xiaoming's power, the 3 were completely depressed. They made an oath obediently, took the wolf poison potion and hid in human society, and never set foot in the magic world again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1473. After annihilating the group of werewolves on Christmas, Lupin and the leader's right guard, Huang Xiaoming, could no longer stay in this remote village. The magician's actions cannot leave ordinary humans with memories. Xiaoming and Lupin quickly cleansed the memories of the living people in the village. The bodies of the werewolves were all put into Guangmingding for extra meals, and Lupin was only told that the bodies were destroyed. This operation made the villagers think that all the damage was caused by a sudden earthquake. After doing this, it seems that Lupin and his friends should be able to stay for a while. But the real problem is that magic can only clear superficial memories, and there are some deep things in the subconscious that magic cannot clear. The villagers still involuntarily express fear, gratitude, and some resentment towards Lupin and Xiaoming, and even they themselves don't know where this feeling comes from. Their subconscious minds were afraid of the two's fighting power, they were grateful that they saved their lives, and they were angry that the disaster of the village was also caused by these 2 people. Faced with such a look, they really couldn't stay in the village. Besides, the 2 of them were just taking a break here on Christmas Eve and had no intention of staying here for a long time. A few hours later, in a forest, Xiaoming used wood release to build a house, and the 2 discussed the next plan. Cousin, Lupin spoke first, and he was used to this name now. Do you think the werewolves are really hopeless? I clearly put a way out in front of them, but they just didn't listen. Is killing the only way to solve the problem? Faced with such real things, Xiaoming's perspective on the problem is sometimes different from that of ordinary people. Cousin, it depends on how you look at it. People will eventually die, or it may be heavier than Mount Tai, or, forget it. After death, all the good and bad things you have done will be judged by the underworld. The killing you mentioned is actually just sending them to see Hades. Sending them in advance can also reduce their sins. This is a very merciful act. Looking at the serious nonsense of the leader's right guard, Lupin could only write a big admission in his heart. I believe your lies. You ninjas are really good at playing, even killing can be said so fresh and refined. How could he know that this distant cousin said this sincerely, and he was the most qualified person to say so? He was originally Hades. Haha, stop joking. To be honest, werewolves are miserable. Most werewolves don't want to be bitten voluntarily, and their sins should be divided at least half with the werewolves that bite them. Speaking of this, Lupin's face twitched, and he said fiercely, "But if you meet Fenrir Greyback, I will never stop you from killing him." He thought about it and it seemed a little wrong. Because from the beginning, this matter was not the responsibility of the leader's right guard. He just came to help. Lupin quickly changed his words and said, "Sorry, I mean, just treat it as your cousin begging you, if you have a chance, help me take off Fenrir's head. He is the one who deserves to die the most." Xiao Ming can understand Lupin's hatred for the werewolf leader. He also knows what happened through the memories of Sirius and Dumbledore. But he didn't feel that kind of pain. After all, it didn't happen to him. And Xiao Ming has had a strong fighting power for a long time. It is difficult to empathize with the bitterness of reincarnations or plot characters below A level and B level. It was only because of his memory of being a human that he could understand Lupin on the surface. This made Xiao Ming realize that he seemed to have missed something. Lupin found that when he asked the leader's right guard to kill Fenrir, the other party seemed to fall into deep thought. Was his request really too much? The leader's right guard raised his hand, and a golden light circle appeared in the air. A person fell from the light circle and lay in front of the two. The person's body was shaking constantly, and he couldn't make a loud sound in his mouth, and he couldn't get up. Take a closer look, this person's limbs were broken, so miserable. I guess his throat was also injured. Take a closer look at his face, my God. This is the culprit who bid himself Fenrir Greyback. Then I heard my cousin's calm tone in my ears, "Professor, if you speak, I will definitely help, but whether to kill him or not is up to you." Lupin was stunned. He knew that the leader's right guard was powerful, but he didn't know that he was so powerful. Fenrir is the leader of the werewolves, and his fighting power may even exceed his own. How could he become like this in the blink of an eye? Are you the reincarnation of Merlin, or what? If I was talking about Voldemort just now, would you also capture him? Looking at his cousin's calm expression, Lupin felt that he might really be able to do it. It's just hard to say whether he is willing to do it. Lupin was not going to make such an excessive request. Gradually, his emotions were occupied by hatred. His eyes turned blood red, staring at Fenrir fiercely, and he was struggling fiercely in his heart. At this time, once Lupin got angry, killing Fenrir with a magic was a trivial matter. He might use an unforgivable spell, he might even be stimulated by the werewolf's blood and bite Fenrir to death. If something like that happened, Lupin's character would probably slide into the abyss of depravity. Xiao Ming didn't expect that simply helping his cousin realize a wish would bring him a huge test. Fenrir was even more confused. In the past 2 or 3 months, he received news that 2 magicians were recommending wolf poison potion to werewolves. It is said that it can keep werewolves sober when they turn into wolves. This is a good thing, but the other party's conditions are too much. It's not that they sell the potion very expensively. If it was just a matter of money, werewolves would have tolerated it. Where can't they get money? But these 2 guys are using the potion to split the werewolf group. Werewolves can only get the potion if they are willing to make an unbreakable oath and swear not to hurt innocent humans again. TNND, isn't this digging their own corner? The werewolves all want to do something with these 2 people, but they are too slippery to catch them. Even if a small team of werewolves encounters them, they can't do anything to them. Fenrir is organizing the werewolves to form a group of 20 to 30 people recently, and it should be able to handle it. The large team of more than 30 people was wiped out on Christmas Eve yesterday, and he was still at a loss. In fact, werewolves have other ways. For example, let some werewolves take an oath, but the potion they get is used by other werewolves. Best of both worlds. But with Fenrir's character, doing so is undoubtedly a sign of cowardice. And it won't last long. It's better to capture the two magicians directly. Just as he was discussing with a group of werewolf leaders under his command, somehow, his eyes blurred and he came to an unfamiliar wooden house. The key is that his limbs were instantly broken. What the hell is going on? Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1474. I remember that there were two good werewolves before. Due to the effect of the sword of rewarding good and punishing evil, they could stay awake when they transformed. These two people did not keep themselves out of trouble, but returned to the werewolf group to stop them from hurting innocent people when everyone transformed into wolves. It is not an exaggeration to call this behavior great. You know, it is not so easy to stop a crazy wolf, let alone a group of them. Even if they have lost their reason, their beast instincts have become stronger. If they stop such werewolves, they may be injured or killed accidentally, which requires great courage. At that time, Professor Lupin reminded them to pay attention to safety and run away if they can't. The leader's right guard, Huang Xiaoming, put parasites on the two. They did not parasitize them, but just followed them closely. Once they were in danger of endangering their lives, they were rescued directly. It can also be regarded as an affirmation and reward for the two. Fenrir Greyback was very unlucky. Among the werewolves gathered around him at this time, there happened to be these two. So Xiaoming always knew where Fenrir was. Since Cousin Lupin hated him so much, he might as well catch him. Even after capturing Fenrir, Xiaoming instantly arranged for a 7-star shadow clone to impersonate him. After dealing with Fenrir, he would consider how to end this. At this time, Fenrir was confused. He didn't consider what would happen without his wolf pack at all. He was just worried about his own fate. This is also human nature. It's urgent to take care of the present. Fortunately, he only considered himself. When he found that his life was in danger, he immediately kowtowed repeatedly, begging Lupin and the leader's right guard to spare his life with a tearful expression. In fact, because his throat was injured, he couldn't speak, and because the broken limbs were very painful, his kowtow posture was not standard, more like rubbing his face on the floor. That posture was a little funny. Xiaoming almost matched him with BGM, rubbing, devil-like steps. However, Fenrir still showed a very clear attitude of submission, which greatly reduced Lupin's murderous intent. If this old wolf is the kind of madman who is not afraid of death, he will be particularly tough when he dies, and his unrepentant eyes may stimulate Lupin to kill. Once he kills a person who is unable to resist because of anger, Lupin, with his realm, will probably leave a huge psychological shadow. Xiaoming doesn't think he will become a bad guy all of a sudden. He is not that kind of person. At the same time, Dumbledore and the Order of the Phoenix will definitely lend a hand. But Lupin is likely to be very depressed. Simply put, he is depressed. In that case, the whole person is basically useless. In Xiaoming's worried eyes, in Fenrir's continuous painful pleading, Lupin's mind regained clarity. Pointing at him with the wand in his hand, he took a deep breath and said, "You belong to Azkaban, go and taste the Dementor's kiss." Stupefy. The last word is the magic spell feint. Falling into a coma temporarily prevented Fenrir from feeling the severe pain in his body. "Cousin, are you really not going to kill him? Don't you hate him anymore?" Xiaoming asked with a hint of sarcasm. "Hate? Of course I hate him," Lupin answered with a firm look in his eyes, But I can't kill him. But it's better this way. He will be worse off than dead in Azkaban prison. Pa Pa Pa. Xiao Ming applauded and praised, as expected of a professor at Hogwarts, you are really magnanimous, but I caught him, so I should deal with him, right? Lupin slapped his head and suddenly realized, that's right. Then, according to your ninja rules, how should we deal with him? Xiao Ming wiped his hand in the air, blinked at Lupin, and smiled, I won't tell you this, I'm afraid you can't stand it. I promise that the stinky dog will not appear again. Lupin immediately understood that the leader's right guard probably wanted Fenrir to be tortured to death, which seemed to be more satisfying. He just didn't want to kill people who had no power to resist with his own hands, and he didn't want to kill people because of anger and hatred. But Lupin is not a saint. He even stopped Xiao Ming from killing for him. He is actually more satisfied with his cousin's approach. He is still thinking, the mysterious East has a very different punishment method from Europe. I heard that there is a death penalty called lynching. I wonder if the leader's right guard knows about it? Although Lupin quickly dispelled this idea in his mind, Xiao Ming still felt it. He sighed secretly. If his cousin's heart is cut open, it will probably be black. It's really hard to tell. Fenrir's ending is actually nothing. He was just eaten by Xiao Ming in Guangmingding. Those who eat people will also be eaten by others. Then his soul went directly to the next door Quafu underworld to be judged. That punishment is much more terrible than lynching. Having resolved a long-standing knot in his heart, Professor Lupin is now radiant. The whole person's spirit is different. Xiao Ming can clearly feel that his strength has risen to a small level. It is no less than Snape before he learned ninjutsu. His werewolf identity and the fact that his enemy Fenrir was still active were the two things that had always been Lupin's inner pain. They also severely restricted his improvement in strength. Once he got rid of the shackles, his cousin had the potential to soar into the sky. Xiao Ming was also very happy for him. He specially prepared a sumptuous banquet to congratulate Lupin. No fortified food was used. During the meal, Lupin also asked briefly about how the leader's right guard caught Fenrir. Seeing that his cousin smiled and said nothing, he did not ask. In his opinion, Xiao Ming must have used some powerful trump cards to capture Fenrir in an instant for his own personal affairs. This is a huge favor, and it would be particularly ungentlemanly if he wanted to dig deeper. We are British gentlemen. Although he did not say it, Lupin deeply engraved this favor in his heart. In the future, he is willing to sacrifice his life for the leader's right guard at any time. However, the most important thing at present is to formulate a strategy for dealing with werewolves next. After eating a dumpling, Lupin asked, Fenrir is the leader of the werewolves. Now he is, gone. It should be much easier for us to win over the werewolves. What do you think? LLL Omega, Xiao Ming was speechless. I am not Yuan Fang, I don't know what to think. Then he said, it's very simple. Let's keep going. If we meet a good werewolf, we'll help it. If we meet a bad werewolf, it depends on the situation. Those who don't do much evil can be temporarily let go as long as they are willing to swear to change and insist on taking the potion. For those who are stubborn and have committed serious crimes, there is no need to waste words. Xiao Ming didn't say anything else. He scratched his neck with his hand. The meaning was self-evident. Kill them and be done with it. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1475. The existence of werewolves has developed to this point, and it is true that the werewolves cannot be entirely blamed. First of all, most werewolves do not become werewolves voluntarily. Secondly, they are uncontrollable when they transform, and it is difficult for ordinary people to suppress that kind of wildness. Once again, the already pitiful werewolf was discriminated against in the eyes of the magician community. In the magical world, Muggles and mixed blood suffer discrimination, and even pure-blood magicians who have a gentle attitude towards Muggles will also be discriminated against. Therefore, the emergence of Voldemort is not an accidental phenomenon, but an inevitable phenomenon caused by long-term discrimination. Even if there is no Voldemort, there will still be Demort, Creeper, and Slipper. Finally, Fenrir Greyback appears among the werewolves. He is the Voldemort among werewolves, but unfortunately his consciousness is not thorough enough. Otherwise, he should even oppose Voldemort and lead the werewolves to trample all magicians under his feet. The situation of werewolves is not serious in Pangu. The people of the Chinese countries do have a strong sense of national pride, but they will not discriminate against foreigners to such an excessive degree. Thinking about it now, it seems that such incidents have been controlled since the 12 kings of the Qin dynasty established the later Qin dynasty. As time travelers, they are well aware of the dangers involved. Plan ahead for a rainy day. And Xiaoming is a reincarnation. In various versions of the reincarnation world, he can see some of the beautiful and treacherous things on Earth in modern society. He feels that black people, indigenous Indians, and various minority groups including Asians living in the United States have suffered severe racial discrimination. Their situation is very similar to that of werewolves, especially the black ones. Their ancestors were sold as slaves to the Americas from distant Africa. They didn't come here by themselves. First of all, black people experienced hundreds of years of slave life. After that, although they were no longer discriminated against in name, in fact, discrimination was almost everywhere. And the most important thing is that in this social environment where it is difficult to change their destiny, black people are almost doomed to a life of misery from birth. Who dares to say this with conscience? Even if I was born in a slum, don't have enough to eat or wear, have no money to receive a good education, and are exposed to crimes and criminals all day long, I will definitely become a person in the future. A good man and a pillar of the country. It's not that such people don't exist, but they are rare. We cannot apply the standards of saints to the general public. That is very shameless behavior. Many people think that black people are bad, and they often make wild remarks and show discriminatory attitudes towards black people, even as much as white people. Completely ignoring that Asians themselves are also being discriminated against. These people just don't want to put themselves in their shoes and think about it. How could many good people be produced in that kind of social environment? They just stand and talk without pain in their backs. A full man doesn't know that a hungry man is hungry. This is not to say that the black community itself does not have responsibilities. They themselves will always be responsible. But it is not just black people who bear the blame for this situation, but society as a whole. Such a society that drives most people of an ethnic group into villains is the main culprit. And everyone in society cannot escape his or her own share of responsibilities, but there is only a slight difference. After all, society is made up of individuals. So are werewolves. One bite was already pitiful. But in the magic world, they suffer discrimination, exclusion, even hostility and harm from most magicians. Then the vast majority of werewolves will become like that, and the responsibility cannot be simply placed on them. Of course, their own responsibilities are greater than those of black people. In the world of Pretender, Xiaoming has also been exposed to some more advanced ideas. Understand that this phenomenon is probably an inevitable product of an exploitative society. Discrimination is more than just racial discrimination. The rich discriminate against the poor, the powerful discriminate against the common people, the knowledgeable look down on those with low education, and so on. Any kind of discrimination is a manifestation of human evil. Even Xiaoming himself dare not say that he is completely innocent. Don't look at him as Pluto. At the end of his life, he will also be punished by the soul gem. Professor Lupin is a rare werewolf with a kind heart. Even though he saw that most of the werewolves were bad people, he was unwilling to solve the problem by killing. because he knew very well that killing would only make things more troublesome. Unless all werewolves in the world are killed, oppression will always inspire resistance. He placed his hope on the mysterious right guard of the leader. Think of a way. Please, Lu Ping said to the leader's right guard. Xiao Ming's attitude towards this is indifferent. Because he is Hades, he knows that everyone will be judged by the soul gem after death. So it doesn't matter if Xiao Ming wants to take care of these things in the world, or if he doesn't. Since Lu Ping wanted to take care of it, he didn't mind helping. Suddenly, Xiao Ming felt a sense of déjà vu. Back then, in the world of Legend of Sword and Fairy 1, he had always wondered why the Sword Master watched the leader of the moon-worshipping cult do evil and did not interfere. Now my attitude seems to be similar to that of the Sword Master. I couldn't help but feel a little emotional. After going around in circles for so long, my own realm is only just approaching that of the Sword Master. The world of Sword and Fairy is a world that I have experienced very early. Alas, things are unpredictable. Seeing that the leader's right guard did not refuse outright, but was deep in thought, Professor Lu Ping's eyes lit up and he knew there was something going on. I never expected that even for such a thing, my cousin seemed to have a way to think of it. Could it be that I saw it wrong? Lupin did not dare to disrupt the thoughts of the leader's right guard, and waited quietly on the side. For such things, Xiao Ming does have some ways to experiment. He has done it several times in the reincarnation world. For example, in the world of Mars Alien, he established a society where insect humans and undead coexist on Mars. It looks pretty good. The basis is that insect humans have the ability to communicate with each other, and in this communication, insect humans and undead cannot lie. In the world of My Date with a Vampire 2, after the end of the world, Xiao Ming also helped humans build a good society. The foundation of that society is the real court. That is, Wang Zhenzhen and Sidu Fenren work together to develop a telepathic ability. The effect is similar, and you must never lie in court. This provides the cornerstone of social fairness. Xiao Ming has always felt that when people are sincere, the world will definitely change dramatically. However, Xiao Ming did not observe the two pilots to the end, and left after staying for a few years. In fact, it is not known whether such fairness can be maintained forever. Maybe society will collapse after n years. So this experience may not be really effective. And Xiao Ming is not going to use the appeal method in the Harry Potter world. He is too lazy to transform everyone into insect humans, and he is even more unwilling to take the effort to replicate the real court. Since Lupin's request only requires helping the werewolf tribe, he plans to think of some more convenient ways. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 1476. 3 months later, on the evening of February 24, 1995, the second match of the Tri-Wizard tournament ended. That night, Luna once again described the wonderful match to the parasite. Although she said it was lively, in fact, most of the process of this match was carried out underwater, and Luna and other students were watching the game in the water stands. Except for a few masters, others could not see what happened underwater at all. In the end, only one result was obtained. It still made the students of the 3 magic schools excited. Luna only recounted what she heard from others later. After so many students passed on and polished it, the story has been seriously distorted. And this day happened to be the day when Lupin and the leader's right guard, Huang Xiaoming, completed the werewolf rescue plan. Today is a good day. What is Xiaoming's plan? It's very simple, that is, to make Remus John Lupin become Wang Zhenzhen and Sidu Fenren among the werewolves. In the world of My Date with a Vampire 2, these two people sacrificed themselves, cultivated the ability of real court, and became the guardian of human fairness and justice. Among the werewolves, this guardian is naturally Professor Lupin. Xiao Ming himself is not interested in making such a big sacrifice for the werewolves, and no one except Lupin is willing to do so. Originally, Xiao Ming also proposed some other plans, such as large-scale promotion of potions to suppress werewolves. Even make it a beverage additive and food additive that is popular even in the Muggle world. Try to make it everywhere. Even if many werewolves have no intention of controlling themselves, it is difficult to stop others from helping them control intentionally or unintentionally. Because you may buy a cup of coffee on the street and drink that potion inadvertently. In this plan, the wolf poison potion is definitely not suitable. Because its effect is to make the werewolf very sober after the transformation, but for most werewolves, it is to help the evil. From the effect of the sword of rewarding good and punishing evil on good werewolves before, Xiao Ming got an idea. That is to use potions to make werewolves sleep on the night of the full moon. If you fall asleep, you can't come out and bite people. Naturally, you can't spread the werewolf bloodline. As long as you don't show it off, the werewolves won't know who has tricked them, let alone guard against it. And Snape, an outstanding potion expert, is the best candidate to develop it. Xiao Ming believes that the difficulty of developing this potion is much lower than that of wolf poison potion. It is just a strong sleeping pill with super long standby, timed effect, and fixed target. Ordinary people will not have a sleeping effect after drinking it, they will just think it tastes good. With Snape's level, it is not difficult to develop it. But the real difficulty is how to promote this potion. To make the Muggle world like it, you need to have a deep understanding of that world. Lupin admired his cousin's imagination, but he was not particularly satisfied with this method. He expected even higher, so this plan was just Plan B. In addition, Lupin was not optimistic about the idea of forcibly subduing all werewolves by force and making them take a magic oath. There is no promotion value at all, not even Plan C. Think about it carefully, how different is this from what the Ministry of Magic is doing now? Horus will put werewolves who have committed crimes into Azkaban prison. The deterrent effect is not small. Doesn't it still not help werewolves? So Xiao Ming thought of a telekinesis system that can make people wish come true. As long as the person has enough potential and is willing to make enough sacrifices. The leader's right guard spent most of the day telling Professor Lupin the story he knew in Hunter x Hunter. The rules of telekinesis were highlighted, and some examples of powerful telekinesis were given. Based on this, the two designed several telekinesis plans. The prospects are very good. However, the premise is that Lupin has cultivated his telekinesis to a strong enough level. In order to save time, Xiao Ming directly opened the seat of telekinesis for him. Then he lived in seclusion and guided him to practice. Lupin, who is an operation system, is still worth cultivating. If he is a reinforcement system, his combat power will be very strong, but it will be difficult to achieve his goal. In fact, it would be best if he was a special type of psychic user. As for the operation type, it would be okay, after all, he could also bring out 80% of the effect of the special type ability. On the other side, Fenrir Greyback, who had transformed into the Seven Shadow clone, continued to lead the werewolves to search for the traces of the two. And secretly cooperated with the two good werewolves undercover to control the actions of the werewolves after the full moon transformation. When the time entered 1995, Lupin felt that his psychic training was still a little slow. By the time he had trained to the required level, the opportunity was gone. Even if he was willing to pay a huge price and formulate extremely strict restrictions and oaths, it would take at least 10 years of training. After all, he was not a dazzling protagonist like Xiaja. In the original book, Professor Lupin would marry Nymphadora Tonks within 1 or 2 years. The old cow eats the young grass, which can be regarded as God's care for him. Unexpectedly, it was a last gasp. In the final battle in 1998, both the couple died at the hands of the Death Eaters. Fate is really unfair. Fortunately, Nymphatero left Lupin a son, Edward Remus Teddy Lupin. He is not a werewolf, but he inherited his mother's bloodline and is a metamorphomagus. Harry Potter is his godfather, and his life is considered happy. Lupin, who died in the battle, was indeed not a talented person. After thinking about it, Xiaoming decided to give him a cheat. Since there are so many bad werewolves among the werewolves, let them make some contributions. Use some method to let them contribute their potential in telekinesis. Gather the power of the whole werewolf clan to change the fate of the werewolves. Xiaoming has experienced the world of Underworld, and the abilities of the werewolves there are much more convenient than those in the world of Harry Potter. Those werewolves can transform into wolf form at any time, without having to wait for a full moon. In addition, when they transform into wolves, they will not lose their minds. To be honest, this is almost the same as animagus. Moreover, they also have extremely strong body repair ability. The combat power is quite good. If the werewolves in the Harry Potter world have the same characteristics, the discrimination they suffer will not be so serious. In fact, their discrimination is directly related to their low combat power. The strong will not be discriminated against. Xiaoming and Lupin simply set this as their goal. I don't dare to expect a strong body repair ability, but it is possible to transform the werewolf into animagus. Moreover, the werewolf lost its sanity on the night of the full moon, which also provided convenience for Xiaoming and others to make moves. Considering various situations, Xiaoming and Lupin reset the ability they wanted to complete, and it took nearly 2 months to realize it. Lupin's special ability of Nen, Silver Moon Wolf God. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1477. My children, I have good news for you. I, Fenrir Greyback, have received instructions from the Wolf God and will lead the werewolves to a bright future. AO. AO*N. In a forest somewhere in Britain, the sun slowly sank into the horizon. A large group of werewolves surrounded a huge rock in 3 layers. Standing on the rock was the werewolf leader Fenrir, who was transformed from the 7th shadow clone. He was speaking to the werewolves he had summoned. The werewolves were actually skeptical about his statement. They just liked to be led by Fenrir to pursue blood and killing, and they really didn't believe what he said about the wolf god. After all, this statement has never appeared in the werewolf tribe, even Fenrir had never mentioned it before. And now that we have entered modern society, even werewolves are not so easy to fool. But, since it was Xiaoming who arranged the game, it was certainly not as simple as just talking. Fenrir on the rock howled, and his body began to change gradually. The werewolves below were all shocked. It was true that today would be a full moon, but the moon hadn't risen yet, hadn't it? How could he transform now? This wasn't the scariest thing. The werewolves of Britain usually turned into grey or black wolves after transformation, and their size was the size of an ordinary big grey wolf. The size of the one that the leader Fenrir had transformed into was very huge at first glance. On all fours, he was at least 3 meters tall. The key was what was going on with that gorgeous and noble silver wolf hair? Can a werewolf be so handsome? The werewolf's eyes were almost full of stars. This was the beauty of God. Seeing Fenrir transform into a huge silver wolf, all the werewolves believed that the leader had not lied, and he had really received instructions from the wolf god. If he wanted to lie to everyone, even if he said he was the wolf god, I'm afraid everyone would believe it. So all the werewolves prostrate themselves. Their hearts were filled with yearning for the future. The wolf god had already given instructions, which meant that good days for the werewolves were coming. How could they know that this Fenrir was not a werewolf at all? The 7 stars shadow clone could turn into a giant silver wolf, not to mention a giant dragon. The silver giant wolf opened its mouth and continued to speak human words, "My children, I will only save those werewolves who are willing to believe in me, so pray to me." After the werewolf turned into a wolf, it lost its rationality, let alone speaking. The silver giant wolf spoke human words, and everyone believed it even more. Therefore, many werewolves present began to pray sincerely. There were also people here who knew the truth, that is, the two good werewolves who came under cover. But they were also praying, because Xiao Ming had already informed them. Now it was going according to plan. As the two prayed, their bodies began to change, and soon they also turned into silver wolves. But they were not giant wolves, just wolves of normal size. The two wolves howled loudly, which immediately attracted the attention of several werewolves around them. "Wow! Peter, Charlie, they too, Lord Wolf God, I pray to you devoutly." A moment later, another 4 werewolves nearby turned into silver wolves. The werewolves were even more excited, followed by 8 new silver wolves, 16, 32, and finally 64. All 126 werewolves in the venue turned into silver wolves. No one was missed. So many silver wolves gathered together and looked very beautiful. The ceremony was a perfect success. If you count the 3-meter-tall giant wolf in the center, there are 127. If you count Lupin in the invisible uniform, there are 128. However, since the 3-meter-tall giant wolf is actually a fake, in fact, there are still 127 silver wolves. On the boulder, Lupin excitedly looked at the leader's right guard, Huang Xiaoming, who was also wearing an invisible uniform beside him, and nodded his wolf head, which means that you are still right. Even werewolves are creatures that look at their appearance. The image of the silver giant wolf is indeed the key factor for the success of this ceremony. He could imagine that if it weren't for this image, the werewolves might not be so easy to fall into the trap. Not to mention the perfect completion of the ritual. This ritual of transforming werewolves into animagus is so powerful because it meets many restrictive conditions. It dealt with most of the werewolves following Fenrir at once. Silver Moon Wolf God, this ability sounds high-end, grand, and classy. It looks even more pleasing to the eye. But in fact, it is more like a virus that only spreads among werewolves. Moreover, it will not spread too much. A werewolf can only infect 2 others, and then he will lose the ability to continue to spread the virus. This restriction seems to reduce the infectiousness of the virus, but in fact it increases the speed and effect of transmission. Because of the restricted mind ability, the power will be enhanced. And this model is obviously a Ponzi scheme model that is considered illegal in modern society. This idea was not thought of by Xiaoming, but by Lupin. Interesting, isn't it? The truth is that Professor Lupin lives in poverty, and the magician doesn't know much about the methods of modern business society, which led to him being deceived once before, and the memory is very deep. So he negotiated with the leader's right guard and introduced that model into the Silver Moon Wolf God's mind ability. On the surface, it was the giant wolf transformed by the shadow clone Fenrir that attracted the werewolf's attention. In fact, it was Lupin who was hiding nearby who spread the virus. The 2 good werewolves, Peter and Charlie, received instructions. As long as they prayed sincerely and were close enough to Lupin, the virus would spread to them. Then the image of the silver giant wolf would appear in their minds. At this time, as long as they converted to the giant wolf devoutly, the virus would take effect. They could transform into silver wolves. Their identities also changed from werewolves to animagus. From then on, they could transform into silver wolves at any time and would no longer be affected by the full moon. Their minds would also be clear all the time. With them as role models, other werewolves naturally followed suit under the influence of the herd mentality. As more and more werewolves transformed, others became more and more devout, so all the werewolves present were infected with the virus. The ceremony was completed. There were many constraints on the ceremony for the first release of the Silver Moon Wolf God virus, which made the virus so powerful. The first was the time. It must be held on the day of the full moon, but before the moon rose. This was not difficult. The second was the number of people. The number of werewolves infected must be exactly 126. No more and no less. This is more difficult. If it weren't for Fenrir's identity, it would be difficult to do. The third is piety. The werewolf must pray to the wolf god devoutly and have the image of the silver giant wolf in his mind. Infected by the virus. It was all thanks to the super high appearance of the silver giant wolf, Peter and Charlie, the two shills, and Xiao Ming's ability to whisper secretly that we can get a perfect ending. As long as there is a werewolf who is stubborn and refuses to pray, the ritual will eventually fail. Xiao Ming doesn't care, but Lupin will pay the price of his life for it. And the virus will all fail. It's actually very dangerous. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1478. Silver Moon Wolf God. This virus-type telekinesis ability. The more people infected, the stronger its power will be, the scope of infection and the ability to brainwash werewolves will be greater. Everything is difficult at the beginning. When Lu Ping is the only one infected with this virus, the infectivity is very weak, and the transmission radius is only 1 meter. It also requires the other party to be very pious. If Charlie and Peter hadn't pressed forward hard and cooperated fully, they almost wouldn't have been infected. After the virus reaches his body, the transmission radius doubles to 2 meters. The requirements for piety have also been slightly reduced. The giant silver wolf and Fenrir's influence were enough. There were at least 7 or 8 werewolves within 2 meters of them. After being infected and transformed into silver wolves, the two of them moved their positions and spread out, so that 20 or so people could be within range. It is very easy to get 4 more devout praying werewolves from among them. Next, each wave of infection will increase the virus spread radius by 2. We call Lupin the first generation silver wolf, or Magus, the first generation silver wolf, then Peter and Charlie are the second generation silver wolves, and so on. There are currently 64 werewolves, and they are the 7th generation silver wolves. The propagation radius is expanded to 64 meters. This makes it easy to trap other werewolves within range. In addition, the power of virus transmission is also expanding, because as the number of silver wolves increases, a small part of each of their potential in telekinesis is absorbed by the ability of the Silver Moon Wolf God. In other words, the next infection will involve the combined efforts of 127 werewolves to brainwash the next werewolf, greatly increasing the infectivity of the virus. Of course, there is no need to hold this kind of ceremony next time. The first ceremony will only be performed once, and future infections will be 1-on-1 or 1-on-2. As long as the 7th generation werewolves turn into silver wolves and speak out from their own experience, they can naturally attract the werewolf and easily make him look like a wolf god in his mind. And as long as he is a little more pious, he can be infected. Xiao Ming even thought about setting the virus so that later werewolves could improve the combat effectiveness of previous generations of werewolves. Even though it's just a tiny bit, it adds up to a considerable amount, which can increase the enthusiasm of werewolves to spread the virus. However, this idea was rejected by Lupin. Out of his own selfless mentality, he still used the telepathic potential that the virus absorbed from future generations of werewolves to enhance the virus's capabilities. Professor Lu Ping is the real producer of the telekinesis ability of Silver Moon Wolf God. He must set it up like this, and Xiao Ming cannot forcefully modify it. Some people may ask, if you just turn a werewolf into a silver wolf magus, the bad guys will still be bad guys. After the strength is increased, won't it mean that the ability to do evil is stronger? That's right. Therefore, the Silver Moon Wolf God virus has another ability, which is also a kind of brainwashing for werewolves. Regarding the settings in this area, Xiaoming and Lu Ping have reached an agreement. It is extremely difficult to simply persuade a werewolf to change his ways. There has to be a roundabout way. Therefore, the image of the wolf god in every silver wolf's mind will spread a sense of superior pride of the silver wolf clan, commonly known as tsundere. This is the inspiration Xiaoming got from the elves in the world of Lord of the Rings. He plans to train the silver wolf clan into another kind of nobility in the magic world. In the past, werewolves were influenced by the animal nature of wolves and pursued bloodlust and killing. But the wolf god said that our silver wolf clan is the descendant of the wolf god. How can we be like ordinary beasts? If you eat and get blood dripping from your body, it's too dirty and you can't afford to lose face. Anyone who hunts living creatures in the future will become an enemy of the silver wolf clan and be hunted and punished by the entire group. Biting is an extremely disgusting behavior. Besides, the silver wolf's bite no longer has the ability to turn humans into werewolves. From now on, the silver wolf clan must eat cooked food, even vegetarian food, so as to highlight the noble temperament of our clan. This logic is actually nonsense, but even if the god in my mind said this, it was not the turn of a single silver wolf to refute. Even the silver wolf who made a mistake can't hide his crime. The wolf gods in everyone's minds can communicate with each other. The wolf god does not require every silver wolf magus to be a good person, only that he be arrogant. He is so arrogant that he cannot hunt living animals or bite people. With these qualities, combined with the silver wolf's graceful figure, they will naturally be loved by most humans, including magicians. You will even be worshipped. By then, money and livelihood issues are out of the question. Therefore, the vast majority of silver wolf mags can't afford to do bad things and can't afford to shame the wolf. Especially the kind of bad things that are very shameless and have no technical content. Such as petty theft, gangster molestation, robbery, and rape, etc. Once you are caught, you are bound to hear this type of statement. He's still a silver wolf, how could he do such a thing? Couldn't his hair be dyed? As long as the silver wolf has a little sense of shame, he will try his best to control his behavior. Otherwise, you will lose all your face and you will not be able to hold your head high in the clan in the future. To put it to the extreme, even if the silver wolf clan goes to Azkaban prison, they still have to maintain enough elegance and nobility on the outside. The ones who are most deeply affected by this mentality and the most severely brainwashed are the 126 silver wolf mags who participated in the starting ceremony. With such a foundation, it will be easier to handle in the future. Due to the herd mentality, most new silver wolf mags will be assimilated. Such a setting cannot prevent the criminal activities of the silver wolf clan, but it can control the crime rate to a relatively low level. This is enough. Whether it is the Muggle group or the magician group, criminals cannot be avoided, so there is no need to make the silver wolf clan so clean. If the water is too clear, there will be no fish. If the silver wolf clan is so clean that all the saints are saints, I am afraid they will be destroyed by the Muggles and wizards. It doesn't matter if a saint appears alone, he will be admired by the world and will be remembered for generations after his death. But if a race is full of saints, others will definitely not be able to stand it. Especially those in power. Ordinary people may say, you don't have to be in power, give all the power to that race, we only believe in them. How embarrassing is this? Letting such a group continue to live is to slap the face of those in power. Such a group will either stay in seclusion or die. Those who stand at the pinnacle of power will definitely slander and defame the Silver Wolf clan by any means, and finally completely eliminate them. Even history books don't allow it to be recorded. Lupin wants to find a way for the werewolves to live, not a way to die. He is already very satisfied with the design of the mind ability to this extent. Xiaoming pointed out that the Silver Moon Wolf God is not enough and has fatal flaws. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1479. Defect. What defect? Why don't I think so? Lupin was puzzled by the words of the leader's right guard. Epsilon equals Omicron asterisk. Hey, cousin, think about it. There are only a few werewolves. The ability of Silver Moon Wolf God only works on werewolves. Have you thought of anything? Lupin still didn't react for a while. Black question mark face.jpg. Inheritance, Big Brother. If there are no werewolves, there will be no new silver wolves. When all the living silver wolves die, won't they be extinct? That's right. Lupin suddenly realized that he had never thought about this. But soon he thought of one thing. If all the werewolves were transformed into silver wolves, there would be no new werewolves, and it didn't matter if the Silver Wolf clan was extinct. After listening to his thoughts, Xiaoming couldn't help shaking his head. Sure enough, he was a magician who had not received modern scientific education and didn't see the problem comprehensively. He had to continue teaching. Cousin, think about it. When the number of werewolves decreases to a certain level, the remaining ones should have learned their lesson. They can hide and make the silver wolves unable to find them. After the Silver Wolf clan is extinct, they will have no natural enemies. Shit. It is indeed a big flaw. What should we do? So, after the two people's research, the Silver Moon Wolf God virus was added with the last feature, which is that it can be inherited through blood. As long as a newborn baby has a certain amount of silver wolf blood in his body, then the child may become a natural silver wolf magus. The probability is the same as the ratio of silver wolf blood in the baby. In other words, if both parents are silver wolf magus, the child must be a silver wolf magus. If only one of them is a silver wolf, the child has a 50% chance of being a silver wolf. And so on. Even after n generations, a baby may only have 1 in 1,000 silver wolf blood, but he still has a 1 in 1,000 chance of becoming a silver wolf. This kind of low probability event will still happen. In this way, unless all people with silver wolf blood have no descendants, the silver wolf clan will not be cut off. Unlike magicians, the Silver Wolf clan does not value pure blood. Every silver wolf magus is a descendant of the wolf god. In the eyes of God, everyone is treated equally. There is no way around this, because the previous generations of silver wolves were transformed from werewolves. How can they be so embarrassed to care about the issue of blood? Xiaoming estimated that when there were first magicians, they did not care about blood. Everyone was originally ordinary people. After thousands of years of development, the so-called blood dispute emerged due to the influence of human inferiority. Tens of thousands of years ago, everyone's ancestors were the same monkeys, ancient apes, who could be more noble than who. If you are still not satisfied, you can continue to trace it back to fish and even bacteria. Perhaps, hundreds or thousands of years later, the Silver Wolf clan will become a group that pays attention to blood like magicians. But that is none of Xiaoming's business. It is not even Lupin's business. One generation only cares about one generation. I just hope that the future silver wolves will take care of themselves. Under the full moon, the silver wolf magus all turned back into human form. More than 100 people looked at the full moon in the sky, feeling a lot of emotions. The last time they had a good view of the full moon seemed to be several lifetimes ago. Many people silently shed tears, and they didn't know why. Even the first generation of Silver Wolf Lupin was in tears. Because he had transformed into Silver Wolf Magus, the effect of the sword of rewarding good and punishing evil to shield the full moon had completely disappeared. As for whether Lupin was given a new ability after resetting points, it is still unknown. After a long time, the moon reached the zenith, and the 7-star shadow clone Fenrir suddenly turned into a giant wolf again. He opened his mouth and spit out hundreds of silver lights flying. Almost blinded the wolf eyes of all his compatriots. After a while, the silver light gradually dissipated, and all the silver wolf magus were stunned. On the grass in the woods, a building like a Greek temple suddenly appeared. The open temple had no walls on all four sides, only huge stone pillars supported the ceiling. In fact, it was a huge hall. In the hall, hundreds of white jade-like tables, chairs, and benches were neatly placed. The styles are all designed by masters, and the materials are all precious stones. The value of any one piece is enough for an ordinary family to eat for a lifetime. This temple later became the holy place of the Silver Wolf clan, and even a magnificent castle was built around it. It is also the magic school of the Silver Wolf clan. Its reputation is not inferior to Hogwarts. Nowadays, it is still relatively simple. The stone table is filled with various delicacies, fine wines, and delicacies. Many of these dishes have never been seen in their lives. As soon as the fragrance entered the nose, it made the silver wolves drool. My children, this is the reward of the wolf god. Don't be polite, just eat it. Fenrir finally said the words everyone wanted to hear the most. Although everyone wanted to pounce on it, the wolf god's teachings still reminded everyone to be elegant. So everyone walked into the hall in an orderly manner and took their seats. Start to feast. Since it is a reward from the wolf god, it certainly cannot be ordinary food. Xiaoming made some special efforts. These were all foods strengthened by the second source of energy. They were extremely delicious. In the eyes of the silver wolves, they were indeed worthy of being the food of God. Even if it was only once in a lifetime, it didn't matter. Because the rewards from the wolf god should not be overflowing. One time was enough for them to brag about for a lifetime. There is no doubt that after such a big meal, their belief in the wolf god will reach a new level. Not to mention them, even Lupin sneaked in and had a meal, and quietly asked the leader's right guard if he really represented the wolf god. There is no such delicacy in the world. Xiaoming smiled slightly and did not answer. What should I say? Of course, I am not the wolf god, but if there is a wolf god in this world, its status may not be higher than mine. What I give is equivalent to God's reward, which can only be regarded as half a lie. Except for Lupin, other silver wolves do not know the details of the virus-type mind ability of the silver moon wolf god. The only thing they know is whether they still have the quota to continue to spread it and how to spread it. As for other inside stories, they know nothing. Xiaoming's advice to Lupin is that the truth cannot be completely unverifiable. If Lupin keeps the secret until his death, then there is basically no possibility of it being known to the world in the future. This is not a good thing either. We should still be lenient in doing things. This secret should be regarded as a secret that will be passed down forever by the Lupin family. In the family precepts of the Lupin family, there will be more rules for passing down and keeping secrets. As for how to do this, Xiaoming will not participate. Just treat it as an interesting problem for Lupin. Because of him, Xiaoming, who always hates trouble, has done so many things for the werewolves and spent so much effort. It is only natural for him to be a little difficult. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 1480. When the banquet reached its climax, it was time for Fenrir Greyback, played by the 7 Stars Shadow clone, to retire. Again, Xiaoming was too lazy to meddle in other people's business. This shadow clone had been acting here for 3 full months, and he had done his best for Professor Lupin. Through Fenrir's mouth, he declared, communicating with the wolf god overdraws all life potential, and there is a price to pay for talking to God. After completing this ceremony, Fenrir ushered in his own death. With such a huge contribution and sacrificing his life for the Silver Wolf clan, the fake Fenrir's reputation in the clan had already reached the peak, and now it has reached a higher level. Basically, his words are followed by his deeds, and any words will be regarded as a criterion by the clan members. With this favorable wind, the Shadow Clone made overall arrangements for the clan's afterlife. The Silver Wolf clan must grow stronger and must save those compatriots who are still werewolves. Not only werewolves in Britain, but also werewolves in Europe, and even werewolves in other continents. They also need to be rescued. The Silver Wolf clan cannot just care about themselves. Therefore, Xiaoming made a plan for them: 7 wolves and 8 tigers entering Europe. First, the werewolves on the scene were divided into 16 tribes, which can also be called 16 big families. That is, 7 wolf generals, 8 tiger generals, and 1 priest. The other werewolves will be evenly distributed to these 16 families and become retainers. It can also be said to be an affiliated family. All distribution plans are decided by Fenrir, and no one has any objections. The 7 wolf generals here are the 7 good werewolves who were rewarded with the sword of rewarding good and punishing evil mentioned earlier. Among them, Charlie and Peter were originally in the werewolf group. The other 5 were secretly mixed in by Xiaoming before the launch ceremony. Now they have all been transformed into Silver Wolf Magus. Although they do not have the spirit of dedication of Charlie and Peter, they are much better than these bad werewolves. Xiaoming did not exclude them. These 7 good werewolves were canonized as the 7 great wolf generals by Fenrir. There were also 8 small leaders in the original group of bad werewolves, and they were named the 8 tiger generals. Of course, Lupin had to show up. He was appointed by Fenrir as the priest of the Silver Wolf clan. He was specifically responsible for mediating disputes within the clan. Although it sounds lively, in fact, each family, including the head of the family, has only 8 Silver Wolf mags, and the priest family has 1 less. As the initiator of the Silver Moon Wolf God virus, Lupin will practice another kind of mind ability antidote in the coming days. As the name suggests, this ability can remove the effect of the Silver Moon Wolf God and turn any Silver Wolf back into an ordinary human, not even a werewolf. The purpose of practicing this ability is to deter the Silver Wolf clan from being too rampant. Besides, isn't it common sense that there is an antidote for every virus? Of course, judging from the current situation, the fighting power of Silver Wolf Magus is only slightly stronger than that of ordinary magicians, but not yet invincible, and there is no capital for rampant. Lupin's move is just a precaution. Since the launch ceremony is held here, Xiaoming will no longer destroy this temple. Then this place will become the Holy Land of the Silver Wolf clan. The sacred task of guarding the Holy Land is naturally given to the Silver Wolf priest Lupin family. The British Isles can also be regarded as the homeland of the Silver Wolf. Therefore, the task of recruiting the werewolf group on the island seems to be more important, so it falls on the heads of the 7 wolf generals. As for the rest of Europe, it was divided among the 8 tiger generals. It seems that they are taking advantage, but the priests and wolf generals have a slightly higher status. If their family develops outside the British Isles, the 8 tiger generals' family cannot stop them. In fact, Europe is just the starting point. In the future, the Silver Wolf clan will inevitably spread all over the continents of the world. As long as there are werewolves, there will be traces of Silver Wolf. They are not going to fight, but to spread the gospel of the Wolf God, that is to spread the virus of Silver Moon Wolf God. This secret is only known by the priest Lupin. This batch of more than 100 Silver Wolf mags are basically fanatical worshippers of the Wolf God. Their loyalty can be guaranteed. After learning the legacy of the great leader Fenrir, all the Silver Wolves raised their heads and howled, expressing their determination to complete the task at all costs. Seeing all this, Fenrir closed his eyes with relief, his whole body turned into light, and disappeared completely, without even a corpse. Only 16 piles of gold galleons were left at the scene, each pile of at least hundreds of thousands. This is the start-up capital that Xiaoming specially prepared for the 16 families. As the saying goes, a penny can make a hero fall. Under the leadership of Fenrir, the werewolf group has always been very poor. It stands to reason that they often kill and rob, and they should have a lot of money. But the big heads of them were basically taken away by Voldemort and other Death Eaters of noble birth. The werewolves are only worthy of picking up some leftovers. In addition, Fenrir is more than fierce, and his other abilities are far below the passing level. Being not good at business, the werewolves have been living in poverty. Under such economic conditions, the 8 Tiger Generals' families can't even get the money to leave Britain collectively, let alone the great mission of the Wolf God. Besides, the Silver Wolf is a proud race. If they don't have money to live a good life, they can't stand up straight. Once they lose their pride, the Silver Wolf clan will be lost in the crowd. Therefore, Xiao Ming had to take out so many gold galleons. As for whether they can maintain the pride of the Silver Wolf clan after eating up the old capital, it is unknown. For Lupin and the 7 wolf generals, Xiao Ming specifically reminded them to use the money to buy or invest in some industries to obtain long-term benefits. The Unu sword shop in Hogsmeade Village welcomes investment. In addition, Ollivander's wand shop, where the leader Silver Xiao Ming works, also welcomes investment for the sake of the leader's face. Of course, other shops can also be chosen. Even if some of these people have some special skills and talents, they can open a shop in Diagon Alley by themselves. There are still many ways to make money. Of course, there is another big thing, which is to go to the Ministry of Magic to register the identity of Silver Wolf Magus. When the time comes, the scene of them collectively becoming Silver Wolves will definitely cause a sensation in the magic world. But this matter cannot be rushed, and some operations need to be done in advance. Especially in the families of Lupin and the 7 wolf generals, some Silver Wolves are still wanted. The Ministry of Magic must cancel the wanted order first. Fortunately, there are not many werewolves assigned to these 8 families who carry wanted orders, and there are no serious crimes. If you are willing to spend money to operate, it is not difficult to do. This is also one of the reasons why Xiao Ming drove the 8 Tiger Generals family to the European continent. Because the crimes committed by those werewolves are much greater, especially the 8 Tiger Generals. They used to be small leaders under Fenrir. If they were caught by the Aurors, they would definitely be sent to Azkaban. So it is difficult for them to get away with it in Britain. It is much easier to go to other European countries.